Harihi Om Sadashiva-samārambhām Shankarācārya-madhyamām Asmadācārya-paryantām Vande Guru-paraṁparām Mūkam karoti vācālam Pangum langayate girim Yat-kripātamaham Vande Paramananda-madhavam. Om शिष्यात्म समर्पण कार्पण्य दोषो उपहत स्वभावः पृच्छामि त्वां धर्म सम्मूढ चेताः यश्रेयस्यान्निश्चितं ब्रूहि तन्मे शिष्यस्तेऽहं शाधि मां त्वां प्रपन्नम्. Om. Welcome to the class. In Shastra, it is said, in fact, even in Bhagavad Gītā, it is said that even listening to the Bhagavad Gītā is extremely punyadayak. It is considered to be very, very noble deed that earns a lot of punya. So for today's session, whatever we are going to do, me as a Vakta or you as one who are listening, the Shrota, let us take it in our heart that we surrender everything that we get as a punya, be for that girl who lost her life in this young age. We will observe 10 seconds of silence and then we will start the class. Harihi Om. So we are in the 52nd Shloka of the second chapter, and we are almost towards the end of it. We did a lot of analysis on how to develop such a mindset, the Ishvara, Arpana Buddhi and Prasada Buddhi, and how to become sthir in that particular process. So every time you try to, the mind will slip, and when you are able to make it stick to that particular way of life, it becomes a way of life in you. That is what Bhagavan is referring to. Buddhir vyatitarashyati tata ganthasi nirvedam. That is when the nirvedam, which we identified as Vairāgya, that is when this Vairāgya is attained. We were in the last bit of it, which is Shrotavyasya Shrutasya cha in our last class. Bhagavan says that you will attain Vairāgya. From what? Shrotavyasya and Shrutasya. Shrotavyasya is a future tense, that which you will experience. And Shrutasya is past tense, which is that which you have already experienced. Basically, you will have a Vairāgya towards all the experiences. Bhagavan says you will be able to overcome that. The Vairāgya is in overcoming that desire for the experience. The experience is still there, but having the desire will be removed. Here, the important thing that we talk about is, why is it that Bhagavan first says Shrotavya and then says Shrutasya? If he had said Shrutasya cha Shrotavya, then also it would have come within the rules of Sandhi. There is a specific reason as to why this kind of communication is said. Shankaracharya very beautifully puts it, right? Yatra padakramaha tatra artha viseshaha. Where there is a specific order of the words being put, then there definitely exists an intended meaning. And that is exactly what we are going to jump into. Basically, in a poetry, particularly because of the language Sanskrit, you can rearrange, you can jumble it. That is one advantage that we have with Sanskrit, because it is structured in a very pedagogical way. Every word gains its position through the suffix that gets attached to it. It is there in English too, but that is not the nature of the language, right? He puts, they put, right? So that put and puts, that is the way that the words get reformed when a context is associated. Sanskrit is completely full of such context. It is very context driven. The Anvaya, the prose order, therefore, can be rearranged. But when we see specific things like this, there is a reason behind the krama. That is what we are going to analyze now. Why past experiences are not the main problem. He wants to emphasize the future first and then come to the past, which means the past has a lower order of importance when compared to the future. And the reason is because the past experiences have already been exhausted. You have seen that they are impermanent. There is a sense that we have. Anything that you go back, the utmost happiness or the utmost sorrow, the utmost anger, anything that you take, you say that there is a specific situation, but you also see that that experiences lasted for some times and eventually died. So you understand that they are impermanent. So it is easy to rationally put that which has already happened or those experiences into your shreni of Vairāgya, into your scope of Vairāgya. What is very important is the future. Memory itself carries the seed of dispassion. That is what we need to realize it here. And in this case, when it is a past, because that experience of such experiences also dying, hence it is more of an avantara phalam, a side effect. The main is the shrotavyasya. The true bondage is anticipation of the future. Hope binds more than the memory. Expectations bind more than possession. That is why as soon as you possess something, till the time you possess it, there is a sense of discomfort in you. There is a drive, there is a samsara. It could be greed, desire, being unsettled. You are having that continuous thought. Your mind is getting attached to it. That expectation binding is much more powerful than the possession. As soon as I got it, the value slowly starts depleting. And that too, in fact, I wouldn't say slowly, rapidly starts depleting. Fantasy binds more than the fact. Acharya, in one of his works, says, Bhoga Asha Bandha Karanam. It is the expectation of enjoyment or experience, which is what is the binding element. The mind brings hope and binds you. The sense of emptiness is very natural. Whether one acknowledges it or not, that sense is still there. No matter where and which position I have attained, that sense continues to exist in us. What I have not yet experienced might finally complete me. That incompleteness is the main reason why we have such attachments or such outlook towards the future. And the reason why we are always looking into the future is because what is it that which I can hold on to? That drive automatically comes in us. So crossing this hurdle is the best of the prasad that one can get from God. And Bhagavan says it is karma yoga that brings it to you in the purest form. I have heard of other commentaries also, where if Bhagavan had said Shrutasya cha Shrotavyasya, the emphasis would be let go of the past and also the future. But Bhagavan wants you to let go of the future first. Because if the future is dropped, the past drops automatically. If the past is dropped, the future still sneaks in as a hope. Okay, this is one of the explanations that I have read. This differs from our school because this presents a voluntary action, but we take this as a karma yoga phalam. It is not an action. It is not something that I put an effort towards. I put an effort towards karma yoga, and as a result, we get the Vairāgya. But I just wanted you to know that if in case you are coming across alternate expressions, you can always look into it. You can experience what is their point of view and try to see how or what is the rationale that is going to guide you. And if there is something more powerful, yes, please bring it over here and we can always share it with everyone here. Going into the Bhashyam. When your mind crosses the muddy confusion of delusion, when it is no longer polluted by chasing the sense object, then your intellect will become pure and attain the true vision of reality. When yada, that is at the time when your mind is no longer caught, te antahkaranam moha kalilam, in the confusion of delusion, which is the state of ignorance, aviveka, where one cannot distinguish self, atma, from anatma. And because of that ignorance, mind chases external objects. Vishayam prati antahkaranam pravartate is the way that he puts it. And this is the seed for us to say that the mind continues to chase because of the emptiness. The reason for emptiness is because the mind is not able to differentiate between Atma and Anatma. When that impurity is overcome, then your intellect, te buddhihi, will cross over, vyatitarishyati. That is, it will attain the purity. Shuddhi bhavam apatsyate is the way that he puts it. Pure discrimination between the Atma and Anatma arises in you. At that time, tada, tasmin kale, when your intellect becomes pure and crosses the delusion, as explained in the previous verse, you will attain ganthasi, which is prapsyasi nirvedam, the dispassion. You will see that mere endless studying, hearing, intellectual knowing is ultimately fruitless if it does not lead to direct self-realization. So the difference between our past class and this class, the reason why I took it with the Shankara Bhashyam, is in the past class, we just wanted to know what is Gita. That is the scope of our study. But in this session, what we are trying to do is to let the Gita seep into us. Here, Acharya introduces the 53rd Shloka. When you cross over delusion and attain a clear self-knowledge, you may wonder, when will I see or when will I reach the Supreme, which is the moksham? Bhagavan is going to explain that. Listen to it carefully, is the way that he introduces the Shloka number 53. Shruti vipratipannate yada sthasyati nischala samadhavachala buddhihi tada yogamavapsyasi. Here is the place where he is saying that stability of the mind. Shruti vipratipannate. Te is your. Shruti refers to Veda. Vipratipanna, having won or subdued the otherwise disturbed or fluctuating nature of mind. Yada stasyati. Yada is when, stasyati is remains, as in gets fixed. Nischala, in an unmovable state, which is very stable, which is also telling us that when you go towards that stability of your mind, you will experience an unstable or a kind of things that you really don't want. That is not something that you aspire. That slip is very bound to happen. That slip will slowly stop, is the main lesson that we get here. Samadho is settled in agreement, being in the balance. Achalaha which is without shaking, without jumping from one another, buddhihi, the intellect or the mind, tada, at that time, yogam. Here the yogam refers to the samadhi, the state of being in a state of realization. That is what is yogam here. Avapsyasi, you will attain. Going into the analysis, now this concludes the karma yoga and its phalam in this chapter. After the shloka, there will be a question from Arjuna, who will frame the question based on this. He will ask, he will coin a word called as Sthita-Prajña and ask what it is. And it is a different line of, study that we will be going into. At this point, we are completing our karma yoga and its phalam. Vipratipanna. Root is pad. Pad is taking a position. When becomes is panna. It is a past participle. Basically, a verb taking the position of a noun. And V is used in the context of, split, divergence, etc. That is the context that this prefix feeds. Visesham, right? Vividaihi are all the things that we attach to this V as a prefix. The term Shruti is important to note here. We started saying that it is Veda because it is easily, that is the definition that is used for Veda. But Veda comes from Vid. So there are several things that are associated in this context. The objects of realization, of something that you can get to know of, anything that you get to know of, kind of a stuff. When we continue from the previous shloka, we can refer to this as any object of experience. The shrotavyasya shrutasya cha. That context can be directly attributed to the Shruti. The second one is Shruti refers to Veda. Now, Veda in itself has conflicting statements. Bhagavad Gītā has conflicting statements. The best one is in the Rajavidya Rajaguhya Yogam in the 9th chapter, when we will see. But there are several places where it will be a little bit seen as conflicting, contradicting each other. The other thing is Shruti refers to the Karma Kanda Bhagam, especially around the concept of Bhogam and Aishwaryam. So we know that in Veda, we can divide it into Karma Kandam, where it says that if you want Putra, then you perform Putra Kameshti Yoga, Yajna. Right? Like that, there are several things for everything. You want a Swarga Prapti, perform this Yajna. If you want to defeat your enemies, perform this Yajna. There are so many desire-based aspects that are pushed in Veda as part of the Karma Kanda. After Karma Kanda, we have Upasana, which is more of exercises and meditations. And after Upasana comes the Vedanta, which we call as Upanishad. So here in Shruti, when we are talking, we are specifically talking about the Karma Kanda. Jnana Kanda does not include Karma Phalam, but it promotes the knowledge through various revelations. Objective is to resolve the conflict, and hence Vipratipanna is not applicable to Jnana Kanda. In that argument, we say that here Shruti refers only to the Karma Kanda. While the first representation represents all experiences that we may go through, the Shruti, as in the Veda, ignites the oscillation in us. Because Shruti says conflicting things: perform karma and attain the heaven, perform upasana, attain higher lokas, go up to Brahma Loka, then renounce karma, attain moksha. Right? So there are various things that it says. When it is talking about karma kanda, it will say this karma kanda is the utmost superior things. And when it is coming to upasana, it will say that this is the only marga for you to go into the krama mukti, which is going to Brahma Loka and then going thereafter, which is towards the moksha. Or renouncing the karma and attain moksha, which is said in the Upanishads. So Even Shruti has said those conflicting things. Being able to overcome that conflict and attaining the samadhi, the samadho, which is attaining the balance, understanding the contextual importance and realizing what is the eventual way forward, is what that meaning, the second one, when we are talking about Shruti referring to Veda, emphasizes. Here, the word Shruti is associated with te, Shruti Vipratipanna te. Hence, the seemingly opposite words actually delivers even more beautiful meaning. Vipratipanna is shaken by, and Shruti represents the knowledge. Ashruti Vipratipanna is therefore not taken as the opposite of Shruti Vipratipanna. Instead, it forms the meaning Ashruti Vipratipanna and represents without gaining the knowledge being shaken. Thus, the true opposite of Vipratipanna is Nischala. The reason why we are talking about this is this contains both the words, Shruti Vipratipanna as well as Nischala. So, why is it that we could not have put it under the context of Ashruti Vipratipanna? Because typically means the opposite of. In order to clarify that, we go into this particular line of thinking to differentiate between Ashruti Vipratipanna, grammatically how it forms, versus the Nischala. Bhagavan has used Shruti Vipratipanna, acknowledging that te, which means Arjuna in the context, and for everyone, and for the learned, as a message to the world. Note, te is in a plural form. Aap, when I say that, it can refer to you with a respect, or many or several as well. That is the term that Bhagavan has used here. The subtle nuance in the shloka is gain the knowledge first, but become one who is not shaken by the conflicting ways in which knowledge is provided by Shruti, be it Veda or be it any form of knowledge one can get. The problem is, if somebody is going to paint a picture of providing you a perfect knowledge and classifies it under the terms, let us say, science or clear definitions, etc., you can totally say that they are not yet realizing the world in its true form. Every form of knowledge that you get, you will find the conflicts. So be it the Veda, or be it your own experience, or be it somebody teaching you, like me, now I'm telling all these things, there will be conflicting information that you receive. From that conflict, you attaining the samadhi is the way that we should look at it. We quote the words of Gargi from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad for this. Yat idam sarvam, all which is here. She asks Yajnavalkya, what is the Oda Prodam for this? Is the context. And the answer will be apsu, in water. Right? Then Otam cha protam cha kasmin na khalu. Apsu otam cha protam cha iti. And then water. How is it done? Yajnavalkya will respond it as Vayo Gargi. All that you experience and also the Veda is interwoven to form the fabric of the object that you experience. The Vedas merely reveal the truth. It is only through this interwoven experience that one can traverse the world of truth. That is the bottom line. That is the key message. That Oda Prodam that he uses, right? He goes all the way up to Brahmaloka or Satyaloka and then says, okay, beyond that, if in case you ask, your mind will burst into pieces, something that we discussed earlier. The concept is the revelation that has to happen to you as an object of experience can only happen through this interwoven expression. And therefore, the conflict in such expressions are inevitable. You will always have that conflict. The first part is thus having attained the knowledge of Shruti, which gives conflicting information. The second one goes, Buddhihi sthasyati. When Buddhi stays, the word sthasyati is derived from the root stha, to stand, to remain, to abide by, to be established. Now, this one, if you pay close attention, has been presented in the future tense, will stand. Now, the nuance here is Bhagavan says, Sthasyati describes the event of becoming steady, not a steady state in itself. It is not a perfect tense that is being used. It is a sthasyati, there is a continuation. So it is becoming steady. We refer to this expression in comparison to what is the act of balancing. Nobody can define what is the act of balancing. If I'm driving the cycle, there is no definition of how I am balancing. I adjust myself. If in case it slips, I manage. Means if in case the lean happens to the left, I try to give some force to the right and by balances. If it happens to the right, I give it. We don't even realize that we are doing. But that is the way that the balancing act takes place. He has used yada sthasyati nischala for with that particular thought in mind. So remember, even in a workplace, right? You guys are all very, leaders in your organization, right? You will come across information from the field in a conflicting way. Being able to understand that conflict and from that to extract but be balanced in your mind is exactly what here also it is being said about how you want to behave with your world of experience. Nischala is no inner movement or no wavering. Samadho, the va is the effect of sandhi. Samadha vachala buddhi. So it becomes like the achalaha is the word that can come here. Samadho achalaha buddhi. Let us understand this word in depth. We are aware of this word as the eighth anga of Patanjali's Yoga Sutra. The ultimate final anga in the 8 angas is samadhi. We have also seen samadhanam as a sadhana chatushtaya sampatti. So when you go into the shamadhi shadga sampatti, we will see that word samadhanam. And here we are seeing the word as samadha. So let us break this word and understand and then apply it in the shloka. Root for this word is dha. That is the place from where the dharayati or dharma comes into place, to put, to establish. This leaves sam and a. Sam represents totality. A represents towards, fully. That is what the a will represent. Putting them all together to place fully and evenly into one place. Then he also uses the word achalaha. Achalaha is not displaced, not shaken from the position. If you look at this particular word from that point of view, the way grammatically this word is differentiating is samadhihi namasthitihi na sadhanam. Samadhau is samadhi and au is a locative ending in samadhi. Samadhanam nama sadhanam na sthitihi. Again, we are going into a bit of grammar here. So word is classified in several ways. In Panini's pattern, the word type samadhi is bhavam, samadhanam is action, agency is no doer, samadhanam is doer is implied, and so on. It has a time, it has a stability, and the vyayama is the word that we use. That is the possibility of the value getting depreciated. Here, when Bhagavan is using samadha vachala buddhihi, we take samadhi as the absolute form. Whereas if you associate it to the samadhi, samadhanam in the sadhana chatushtaya sampatti, then it will be wrong because it is an action. But here, because in this way, the buddhi has to be in samadhi, in a perfect state, here Bhagavan has used samadhi plus achalaha. What we say is the jnani practicing samadhanam is incorrect. A jnani is only a jnani when he is sthitham. So a jnani is in the state of the samadhi. A mumukshu abides in samadhi. This is premature. We cannot say that. The mumukshu practices the samadhanam. Coming back to the shloka, Bhagavan uses nischala and achala very carefully. It is not interchangeable. Sthasyati is a futuristic expression. It demands a conscious effort. So, nischala, having no oscillation, is stated. And samadhi is the state of being, the resultant position. Here, achalaha, which is no displacement, is important. Holding a position of not being shaken and being firmly placed in that state. Right? So the reason why we are going through all these things is not to experience the greatness of the grammar, but to understand what is the subtlety in it, in words, so that when you put this into practice, you know how to do it. This is as good as taking the bicycle and giving a complete theory of how to balance. But at the end of the day, it is you who has to go and put it into practice. This analysis will help in being able to differentiate between things efficiently. Then, tada yogam avapsyasi. Note, yada and tada. This is when X happens, Y happens. That is what is the way. You will fully arrive at, you will come to be firmly established in. Not you will get something new or you will acquire a new experience. It is not labhyasi, it is prapsyasi. The avapsyasi implies settling into and fully owning or being at home. The problem is we are that internally, but because of our own ignorance and disturbances, we are not getting settled into ourselves. So Bhagavan says, when you practice it in this way, you will settle down. When sthasyati nischala, doubt is resolved, there is no oscillation in understanding. And samadhau achala, identity, location is fixed. Experience does not conflict with the truth. Otherwise, every experience of yours is conflicting with what you have understood as the truth. You will be able to overcome that. When you overcome that, at that time, the yogam avapsyasi. In simple terms, in life, you will be experiencing the turbulence through the information that comes to you, being able to get into the core of the meaning or the knowledge and being able to get fixed into that state is what is being introduced in this place. Then why yoga comes after samadhi and not before? But this is a very important thing. Samadhi resolves who I am. Yoga resolves how I live. Samadhi is ending the ignorance, whereas yoga ends the inner resistance. When Bhagavan says, when samadhi is firm, yoga becomes inevitable. Avapsyasi, captures its inevitability. Here, that is the reason. So now you may ask, I am already in samadhi. When we take the Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, you put the effort and you get to the samadhi, to the state of samadhi. Here, there are 8 angas, 8 steps being provided. Whereas here, Bhagavan is using samadhi first. And if he says, when this achalaha is established into you, then yogam avapsyasi. That yogam is your inner fluctuations. There is going to be always an inner fluctuation, because in future you get something new that unsettles what you have learned at present. So Bhagavan says your being unsettled will be gone when you attain this samadhi, which is achala buddhi, which is unmoving mind. A very beautiful way to conclude this concept. Further, in most of the Advaitic schools, the interpretation is to inject Jnana Yoga as an implied concept in this shloka. The previous shloka was around Vivekam and Vairāgyam. If you go back into our Sadhana Chatushtaya Sampatti, they are associated with the Karma Yoga. And the next step to Karma Yoga is Jnana Yoga. Right? This shloka is thus taught as a phalam of Karma Yogam, which is moving into Jnana Yogam, or the phalam of Jnana Yogam. There are several ways that this is being communicated. In support, the term Shruti is identified with Karma Kanda in Veda. Thus, the interpretation is, once the desire for Karma Phala as introduced by the Karma Kanda has been subdued, Shruti Vipratipanna, your mind attains the following, which is Nishchalam, clarity and commitment, Achalaha, steady without any doubt. At this state, you attain Samadhi. Right? This is not our line. I am just letting you know that there are very, very good Advaitic schools where they speak from this point of view. We have said we will take the word, go into it to find the meaning, which is what we discussed earlier. This one is another way of interpreting the shloka, which is very prevalent in the Advaitic schools. So they speak of this shloka as Jnana Yoga Phalam. Jnana Yoga is Shravanam, Mananam and Nididhyasanam. Shruti Vipratipanna is attached to Buddhi, the mind that is oscillating due to Karma Kanda Phalam. Alternately, we often get disturbed by conflicting things told to us. This is of no value. You should rather do this, etc. Right? You should go to Shani temple for your problem. And someone else will come and say, you know what? This Hanuman temple is going to be the most powerful one. So go to Hanuman temple. Right? So these are all the conflicts that we experience ourselves. Yada stasyati, when it stops oscillating, when it stops bringing new tendency into you, Nishchala, and is without being disturbed, and Achalaha is taken as steady and determined, Samadhav, the Samadhi, is associated with becoming one with the Atma, becomes fixed in the Atma Tattvam. So that is the way that they have introduced this, which is to say that when you perform Karma Yoga, through Jnana Yoga, you attain the moksha. Right? And you know, our way of looking at it is Karma Yoga, you have to continue. Jnana Yoga, you have to continue. But the Karta Bhavam is totally lost. When the Karta Bhavam is lost, though you are doing something, you are actually not doing, which is what Bhagavad Gītā will be speaking. And they will have their own reasons for why they are saying so. And for me, every such information that I get will feed into this vision of what the truth I have seen, not shake the truth that I have seen. It doesn't mean I'm going to be saying this is what it is and nothing else. My vision of the truth will not change. It means it is not, I have defined a truth and no matter what happens, it is going to be. The way I look at the truth will not change. And what the object of the truth can transform, no doubts about it. But my stability is in the way I define the truth. And I mature with that path of the truth. Interesting kind of discussions these are. We took another version of the same shloka here. Shruti, that which you listen to, Vipratipanna, these differing or sometimes even conflicting notes can shake you from within. Options, this is confusing, this is a waste, the Shastra is ridiculous, etc. Okay, now I understand what brings confusions to me. Now I understand how to navigate. Nishchalam and Achalam are about my focus and my ability. The branches we see in everything. Veda is the same, right? Advaita Darshanam, Dvaita Darshanam, etc. Bible is the same. Catholic, Protestants. You look at it, in any expression, there is always some kind of a conflict. Conflicts are the results of trying to understand the light. Let the light show the object, and let not the object define the light. That is the transformation which will happen. Objective of presenting these versions is to introduce or to induce the thinking in you, which will lead you to the Nishchalam and Achalam that this shloka is offering. Proceeding to the Bhashyam, Acharya says, then your intellect, buddhihi, which was scattered by contradictory things that you see in Veda, Shruti Vipratipanna, something that could be because it speaks of different goals, rituals, path, which unless learned in proper and traditional way, when such scattered mind becomes firm, sthiri bhuta is the way that he puts it, and steady nishchala, and is no longer wandering or wavering, here influenced by the mental distraction and conflicting ideas. That is what Shankaracharya introduces. Vikshepa chalana varjita sati. Even with all those vikshepa together with that, and it is fully absorbed in the self, samadhau, samadhiyate. We can also see it as getting into an understanding about the nature of self and develops an understanding based on the realization of the soul. Meaning, it becomes established in true, effortless awareness of the self, the undivided and wholesome nature of the soul. As in, one is not lost in external pursuit or mental turbulences. Again, there are, these are all the words which can shake you from within. So I should not be doing anything. I should not be doing anything progressive. But it's a wrong way of understanding. Right? So that is the place where the achalam and chalam will come into being. Here, the idea is we are trying to understand the light which you cannot see, but that which makes you see everything. That is the, what is a mindset that you should have when we are learning about this. Tada, at that point, one attains the unification, yogam avapsyasi, with the state of self-knowledge, atma jnanena. Acharya calls it Viveka-Prajña is the word that he used, clear discriminative wisdom, and Samadhi, which is Vikshepa Chalana Varjita Sati Samadhiyate. Very, very beautiful. Every word has its own depth and the meaning, and the expression is so beautiful. Both versions that we have seen take this definition as the base. That is what you need to understand. And that is the natural thing. Both the Shia and the Sunni take the same Quran as the base, but they are having a different perspective. Similarly, every shloka, everything that you get to know will have different perspectives, and through these differences, overcoming the turbulence in your mind and realizing the truth is what our objective should be. Moving further, Acharya says, having now received the seed of a question, Prashna Bhijam Pratilabhya refers to the Upadesh so far received from Krishna, specifically to the state of that equanimity or the Samadhi yoga. Arjuna is going to speak. Bubutsayaha is the way that he puts it, which is, he is now, wow, is that even possible for somebody to exist like that? With that influence, he asks the question about Sthita-Prajña, which is going to be the next shloka. Shloka number 54. Arjuna uvacha Sthita-Prajñasya ka bhasha samadhistasya keshava stitadhih kim prabhasheta kimasita vrajeta kim. Arjuna uvacha, Arjuna spoke, Sthita-Prajñasya ka bhasha. Sthita-Prajñasya, this individual who has such prajna, sthitam in the prajna, who has got this achala buddhi. Ka bhasha. Ka bhasha is not what is the language. How is that expressed? is the context that comes here. Samadhisthasya Keshava. Now he has used two words, Sthita-Prajña and Samadhi, which is exactly the word that Bhagavan has used from in his expression earlier, Keshava. Sthitadhihi. He is making the qualification, he is bringing the qualification of such a Sthita-Prajña as one who has dhimata, who has got absolute intelligence, who is a jnani. So something of the state of a jnani is what Arjuna is qualifying with the word Sthitadhihi. Kim prabhasheta, kim asita, kim vrajeta is the way the shloka goes. Prabhasheta speaks, asita sits, vrajeta is walks, go, do. Right? So vrajeta. Everything has the in-depth meaning. Prabhasheta, how he expresses himself. Kim asita, how does he receive the world, as in what is this position that he takes in receiving the conflicting things that are happening in the world, and vrajeta, and how does he act. Let us do a small analysis. Sthita-Prajña is the word that Arjuna has used. Nischala achala samadhu buddhihi, or one who has reached the state of yoga, is the thing that we can put. But he also includes vyavasayatmika buddhi and eka buddhi. Vyavasayatmika buddhi ekeha kuru nandana. So if you reflect back on that shloka, you will see that that is also included within the scope of Sthita-Prajña. Karma yogi, or perhaps more appropriate than the one who does karma in this particular way and is well settled in doing that karma in this particular. One way of looking at it is, I'm taking a class and you are immediately asking a question and you are only contextually present about this. But that is not the way we have our Q&As as well. It is open. And the reason is, when I look at Arjuna as an amazing student, right? He is established in throughout Mahabharata in terms of how efficiently he learns. For such a person to be just narrowed down to the previous shloka, we don't consider it to be correct. So we take everything that has been given as Upadesh and then he attributing this name to all of them put together. There was no identity that Bhagavan established in his previous shloka or in his preaching. And so Arjuna coins an appropriate name to identify such a person. That is what is Sthita-Prajña. Ka bhasha. The definition, the property is the swarupam. Nyaha is one with knowledge. Pra is prakashena. Sthita is one who is established. So, Sthita-Prajña, yasya, one whose prajna is sthitham, nischala buddhihi, buddhi yuktaha, and manishinaha. And we can add on, right? It is such a beautiful word that Arjuna has coined. In tradition, we see this name as the most appropriate name to define a jnani. Gunatita, right? So we will speak about Gunatita Lakshana in chapter 14. There again, we are using other term. Yoga Bhrashtaha, we will use another term. There are several terms that has been used to represent this jnani, but I think, or the way that I have been taught, in which I am totally achalaha, is this is the best of the name for that. Shravanam gives the jnana, mananam gives the prakasham, and nididhyasanam gives the sthitham, making the entire jnana swarup of this particular word so much more beautiful. So these things that I am expressing are not for shaking. It is to enjoy the poetic beauty of this expression. Now, samadhisthasya, the state of being in samadhi. We are at a point where we will now reserve some time for Q&As and continue on this thing in our next class. This one is an easy one, more of a question, and we try to analyze. But once you go into Sthita-Prajña Lakshan, we will do amazing analysis. Actually, it will be beautiful in terms of every aspect of how Bhagavan is going to approach and how he is defining it. And the way some of the traditions are seeing is something that we will look in our future classes. But for now, I will take a break here and go into the Q&A.
Thank you, Guruji. The way you have explained the Sama was very phenomenal. Actually,
Thank you.
we have a product called Sama.
Uh-huh.
In mental health care, it is a automated therapeutic tool. So Sama, all along, we have been talking about as an equilibrium. This Sama that you have explained um, is a little different from what we have been talking.
We'll be very happy to take something notes from you in terms of how you are referring so that we can inject it into our interwoven fabric of understanding the Sama in its totality. Okay, so we will take a break here and we will come again in our next class to discuss this beautiful area which is called as Sthita-Prajña Lakshan in the future classes. Thank you for all your support and let us connect next week. Harihi Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat.